Good afternoon. This is Media Center Ukraine Odesa, and we continue. And we are going to discuss in the upcoming 20 minutes the future threats to the ports of Ukraine. Our speaker is Oleksandr Velmohko, journalist, historian. Good afternoon, Alexander. Happy to see you here. We've seen a lot of explosions in Crimea recently, including in Sevastopol. And because of that, Russia had to take its fleet to Novorossiysk. Can we start with that? This configuration was seen not for the first time this year, and I have been tracing the movements of the fleet since the beginning of the war. And at the beginning of June this year, they took all their combat parts of the fleet to Novorossiysk after Ukrainian drones attack at the end of May, when the reconnaissance ship was damaged, and when there were attacks on the ship on anchorage in Sevastopol. In July, some of the ships were returned to Sevastopol. And why is it so? Because only in Sevastopol, Russian ships, including submarines, can, without any logistics issue, to be charged with the caliber missiles. And now I would like to show you the Rostov-on-Don submarine, who is now considered destroyed, one of the last boaters. And here we can see that submarine in the South Harbor of Sevastopol in August 2023, near Perth there. And I would like to thank our Sevastopol reporters who regularly publish the photos of military ships in Sevastopol, and we can use that information to monitor the situation there and the state of that ships. When Ukraine received Storm Shadow and Scalp, which are identical from our allies, allowed us to conduct a multi-stage operation in August. And as a result, we were able to damage a big Minsk ship and the Rostov-on-Don submarine that I've just shown. After missile and drone attacks, we can see that starting from the second part of September, Russians have been systematically relocating their ships from Sevastopol to Novorossiysk. It is also important to say that since summer last year, has stopped any activities against Ukrainian coastline, and back in summer 2022, the Russian fleet was limited to patrolling of their coastal waters, and they are still involved in the missile attacks. So strategically, the Black Sea Fleet from a strategic group was turned into the group of missile carriers. And with its combat potential can be similar to one American big ship, like American destroyer. How many ships are there in Sevastopol? And when it comes to combat ships, there could be 2-3 patrol corvettes and those ships that have been damaged and that are under repair now. Do they have submarines in Crimea? As of the beginning of the war, Russia had 6 submarines, and They can have like 5 to have 4 calibers each, and the older version Kavros that has been modernized since 2016. And in Sevastopol, only that Avrosa submarine can be found. Perhaps all other submarines have been taken from Sevastopol in recent days and weeks. What about from Sevastopol? What about Balaklava? Can they have submarines there? No, Balaklava isn't suitable for submarines now, and I personally know that they still can have their Soviet tunnels, the base for submarines, but only for small submarines. Modern submarines, even small submarines, as the project H77, they are too big for that base, so Balaklava can be used only for small surface boats, petrol boats or ships. That's it. How many ships Novorossiysk can accommodate? Because as far as I understand, the water area is rather limited there. It's around, the base in Novorossiysk is around 10% of the whole coastal front of the Novorossiysk harbor. And if when it comes to the Russia's ships neighbors, they can be all placed there, and still they will have enough place for commercial vessels. But as for the part of Novorossiysk which is used for military base, taking into consideration Russia's losses, can just handle all the ships they need to have there. The fact that Russia has taken its ships from Sevastopol is a sign that they're afraid of their fleet. And but there could be a second reason that they are not sure in their air defense systems. When it comes to their air defense systems, when it comes to the fleet precisely, at the beginning of the war, the only Black Sea ship having a really big complex of air defense was Moscow cruiser. Admiral Makarov, Admiral Essen, they have missiles complexes still that can reach up to 70 kilometers, but in practice they have never used them. And when it comes to missile and drone attacks on the Russian Black Sea fleet, we can see that these complexes are not involved. After they lost Moscow cruiser, the Russian fleet have had no active operation beyond the range of the coastal complexes, and we know that as the most modern, the most expensive S-400 complexes, they were destroyed. And we saw that they were attacked by drones, and S-400 cannot see such a drone, and we saw how the drone destroyed that complex. The Minister of the Minister of Defense of Great Britain has mentioned that the fact that the Russian fleet has been removed from Sevastopol is the sign of Ukrainian victory in the Black Sea. What do you think about that? This is the final documentation of the strategic failure of the Russian fleet that actually happened in summer 2022, when Ukraine did not only received Harpoon anti-ship missiles, but actively used them to liberate the Zmyina Island and also to liberate so-called Poika towers, and when Russian tug ship Vasily Berg was destroyed. After that, the Russian fleet have not taken any activities against Ukrainian navigation. The only thing that they can do now, but this is not by the fleet, this is to attack by missiles and kamikaze drones our port infrastructure. And they also use avia bombs to bombard the area near the Zmina Island, but they use the technology of the Second World War. Why do I say this? Because these are controlled bombs. This is the technology that was firstly used in practice by Germans during the Second World War in September 1943, when they downed the Italian Lincoln who was on the way to capitulate at Malta. Thank you. Do we have any questions from the floor? There are no questions so far. And I have a question. At the beginning of the full-scale invasion, Russian ships could get closer to Odesa. They could be reached by artillery. Yes, I saw that with my own eyes. After liberation of the Zmina Island, after liberation of the so-called Boyka Towers, how the situation has changed in the Black Sea in terms of domination? If to say briefly, at the beginning of the war, Russians had a theoretical and practical possibility to have activities near the coastline, and they also could land their troops on the coastline to the amount more than one mechanized or tank brigade. Back then, they had 12 landing ships, 6 from the Black Sea fleet and 6 that entered the Black Sea at the end of January 2022. It could be supported by a Moskva cruiser with its artillery and missiles and 2 frigates. And they also planned to get 2 more such missile cruisers as Moscow and other big ships of frigate class from other Russia's fleets. That escadron was kept by Russia in the Black Sea, but before the full-scale invasion, those ships did not have time to enter the Black Sea. But immediately after the full-scale invasion, Turkey had a very important step to ensure peace in the Black Sea. That is, they closed Bosphorus Strait for military ships of both states, Ukraine and Russia. And it is important for Ukraine because it prevented Russia from bringing 2 more missile cruisers, some submarines, and additional missile carriers in this area. And with those ships they had, they could organize landing and disembarkation. But what happened? We know that at the beginning of March 2022, those ships were attacked by artillery from the coastline. At the beginning of April, there was one more attack. And after the destruction of the Moskva cruiser, they just stepped aside and gave up their landing plans. But actually, that was doomed from the very beginning because Russians decided not to accumulate their landing powers at one point, but they disseminated them equally between the Black Sea and the Azov Sea. And in the Azov Sea, they used tactical landings during the first days of Mariupol siege. And then they took their ships back to the Black Sea. The Moscow cruiser was destroyed, and such landing operation became impossible for Russians. After harpoons were provided to Ukraine, we got an opportunity to destroy any Russian ship which is closer to 200-250 kilometers to our coastline. At the beginning, we had a limited number of Neptune missiles, and we had to risk to allow them to approach closer the Ukrainian coastline to be able to attack them with the limited number of missiles and rockets to use them. When we were sure. We can see Ukraine destroying the fleet of the Russian Federation. Does Russia have an opportunity to construct new ships or to buy new ones? Yes, they have such an opportunity, and they have these base in Kerch, and they constructed new shops. One of them, Sergei Kotov, the patrol boat, without some significant weaponry, but it can maneuver very well, and it can perform different types of operations. And they were able to finalize the construction of the new missile corvette Cyclone with calibers. So at the beginning of the war, they had 9 ships, 5 on the surface and 4 under surface, and now the number has increased. And they have only 8 missiles for every surface boat. We can say that the whole fleet here of the Russian Federation is equal to 1 destroyer, and the United States have more than 70 such destroyers. And before the full-scale invasion, did you see some active construction of ships? Yes, but the number, the class, and the type were not enough to ensure dominance in the Black Sea. If we compare that to the United States, so they were the short-distance boats of the closer sea zone, as they call it, and there is some bureaucracy. Fun fact. They have the project 21631, and those boats within the project were targeted for rivers and for Caspian Sea, but because of their corruption, they were also constructed for the open sea. That's why in the news at the end of last year, we saw that as soon as there is stormy weather in the Black Sea, the number of the missile carriers decreased. That meant that 3 corvettes were returned to their bases because they cannot be effectively used in the open sea. What is the further destiny of the ships damaged by Ukraine? Do Russians have resources to repair them? This is the coin with 2 sides, and when we see the number of Russia's boats near Zmyny, they were able to take from under the surface these boats to repair them and to return them back to the fleet. But one of them was not repaired yet because they cannot buy equipment they need because of the sanctions. This is the landing ship Minsk that was destroyed in Sevastopol. And because they were constructed by Poland in 1980s, and they don't have spare parts to repair that ship. So the only possibility for Russians to repair these landing ships, this is to take spare parts from one ship to install them on the other ship. There is Olenegorsk Hornyak that was damaged. They have almost fully destroyed Minsk. They also have Konstantin Olshansky that they captured from Ukraine. These are typical models, and they can take spare parts from them to have, to repair one. But this is one of the most optimistic scenarios for Ukraine. And as for those ships damaged at docks, it is impossible because there is a danger of additional attack. As for Ukraine, has Ukraine been considering the possibility to manufacture its own ships or to buy new? And this was a difficult question. Before the full-scale invasion, the manufacturing was started as the program for corvette, and one of them have been finalized, and that is in Turkey. But by the end of the war, they will not be able to call Odesa ports because Bosphorus and Dardanelles Straits are closed now. And secondly, as soon as the ships get to the Black Sea under Ukrainian flags, they will become targets for the Russia's missile attack. So Ukraine can manufacture ships abroad or to buy new or used ships, but they could be included to the Ukrainian fleet only after the war. There is one more possibility, is to buy and to manufacture small boats that can be transported to Ukraine by road transport or by sea transport. it can that could be done for the petrol boats that had been ordered from France before the full-scale war, and we've seen such consignments using the Danube River. But this number is not enough to ensure the strategic dominance at the Black Sea. This just allows to increase control in our water area. As for the manufacturing at our own factories, I don't think that this is feasible because these facilities in Mykolaiv can be at any time attacked by Russia's missile, and Russia still have missiles that cannot be intercepted by Ukraine. How much does it cost to construct, manufacture one ship abroad? It is around $250–300 million. When it comes to a missile corvette, this is the biggest ship, the biggest boat Ukraine has ever ordered abroad. And when it comes to strategic situation at the Black Sea, this is the biggest boat we need here. As for our topic, the threat to Ukrainian ports, after Russia has left the grain deal, they have been attacking all the time our ports. They use mainly drones, because there is a lack of missiles, or they try to accumulate missile for some other attack. What we should expect in the future? As far as I understand, they use a drone because this is the most precise weapons they have. They are more precise than missiles, and they are cheaper. They can be launched en masse. And we saw them, some massive attacks with caliber or Ha-101. Most of them, or even all of them, under specific conditions, are shot down. How it is, and what we have already seen. And one of the caliber missiles was shot down in several dozens meters from the house I live in. And the drones are effective when there is no quality air defense system. We can see this in Ismail, in Reni, and the port infrastructure has been significantly damaged there. And recently, the Ukrainian government has stated that around 40% of export port infrastructure facilities have been damaged. And there is one more number. During those attacks, around 300,000 tons of grains have been destroyed. And these are two vessels of clip-size type. And as far as I understand, they will continue attacking with such combat drones. Yes, and this is the only way Russia can try to interfere with the Ukrainian navigation or export, because they will not dare to directly attack sea commercial vessels that are 99% under the foreign flags. This is like attack on the ships of other states. This is like piracy. And what has happened with pirates? They are killed at once. What are the mechanisms to protect to the maximum extent possible the ports of the Odesa region? There are two mechanisms. This is to strengthen our air defense system. This is what is effective in Odesa, Chernomorsk, and Pivdenny ports. And the second mechanism is preventive attacks on the points of launching Russia's drones. This is the territory near Feodosia, the Chauda Cape, and also to attack the places where drones are produced or the routes they are supplied. Why it is difficult to attack Chauda Cape? It is on the other side of Crimean mountains, which is quite a long way to go. So if you try to attack directly by missile from the territory of Ukraine, then this missile should go over the occupied territory where it can be intercepted and shot down. And then it should also cover this territory of Crimean mountains. As for the ballistic missiles, which are okay with such difficult landscapes are not here in Ukraine. And also, if we use some long trajectory over the sea, we don't have such long-range missile. So this is a difficult task. But the fact that Ukraine periodically attacks Feodosia, and where they just like a possible task for us. Thank you very much, Oleksandr. Thank you for coming to us today. As far as I understand, there are no questions from our colleagues. Thank you very much, Oleksandr Velmohko, journalist, historian, who was the guest of our media center, Ukraine, Odesa.